Welcome back. Now that we've done the orientation and just some general housekeeping, we're ready to actually start configuring on the website. So we're going to be going through the WordPress settings first. Then we're going to be configuring the design templates. That's the adding of the logos, the favicons, changing colors, fonts, things like that. Then we're going to be moving on to configuring very specific plugins like the WooCommerce plugin and having that hooked up to what we need it to be hooked up to, as well as any contact forms, the sliders, and a lot more. Ensure that you're logged into the back end of your website and you're at the dashboard. What we're going to do is just go through the main WordPress settings and just ensure that WordPress itself is set correctly for what we need to do for the future. So to do that, we're just going to scroll down to, there's a couple of places we're going to look, but the main one here is settings. Okay, underneath settings, we're going to systematically go through the main WordPress settings. Okay, we're going to start in general, so make sure you've opened up settings by hovering your mouse over it and then just go up to general. Okay, and I think we were in here earlier, but we're just going to double check to make sure we have everything correct. Okay, so this is what you want to see here is your site title. Of course, you can always come in here and change your site title to that. It's good for search engine optimization. It should really include your main, whatever it is you're trying to do in your title. In your tagline here, which also should include probably a main keyword that you're trying to focus on for your entire WordPress page. And the address URL, I think it was originally set for HTTP, but that's been changed to HTTPS from our plugin tool. The email address. Now this is the main email address that gets notifications. We're also going to be working with notifications around WooCommerce, the e-commerce portion, because that's where a lot of the communication back and forth goes with customers. But this is the email that you want to have for any sort of notifications. So you can feel free to change this if you like to a different email address. Just keep in mind that to know where that's going for when you do have stuff happening on your website. Okay, membership. Anyone can register. You don't have to check this off because the theme is controlling registrations. In some cases, like if you didn't use a template or anything, you can click a check mark and that activates the registration screen of WordPress. We actually use the theme registration, or sometimes, or most of the time, you use actually the WooCommerce registration process. So we don't need to worry about that if you have WooCommerce installed, which we do. The new user default role, this is the role that users are given, okay, when they first register. Now, when somebody registers with WooCommerce, they're automatically actually added as a customer. When somebody registers through WordPress, if you didn't have WooCommerce installed, you would set this. And so, of course, you would want them automatically signing up as a subscriber. If you have a different kind of website where you have some roles that you're working with, and these are user roles, that you want them to have a very specific one when they log in, then you would want to change that. But normally, you just leave this default. Your site language, obviously if you're in Canada or US, you can select the English language respective, and I'm just using the United States. This is the time zone. Okay, and so I'm actually in the time zone of, I think it's UTC -7 here, and so that will give me the proper time for any interactions when we get notifications or when things happen, and I can see them in my time zone. Actually, I just realized it's UTC -8, so I'm just going to put that there. Okay, now this is the standard date format. I don't change this too much because I really like the nice date format whenever things are displayed on the website or on emails and things like that. And I'm going to keep the default time format. Hey, if you're in another country that doesn't subscribe to the AM PM thing and you want to use the 24-hour system, you can check that. Also, this here is a link directly to the WordPress documentation. So if you want to burn the midnight candle on some WordPress documentation, you can always right click this, open it in a new tab, and just read up on this and the date formatting. WordPress has a very extensive documentation. A lot of the times, mostly this is for people who are doing any coding and things like that, or for anybody who wants to just understand how this stuff works. So I'm just going to go back to the site here and continue down the settings. So week starts on Monday. That's just up to you when a week starts. So I'm just going to go ahead and click Save Changes. Okay, so we're done, and just going to double check that we have everything there. Perfect. Okay, now we're going to go down to the next setting, which is writing. Okay. Default post category, uncategorized. Now, if you've already made categories for your blog, and you could set a default category here. There's some already from the template that was taken in when we loaded the demo information. But and uncategorized is fine. That's just in case if you missed to actually add a category to your blog post. Okay, and this is the default post format. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of format that came with this particular template. I'm just going to click standard, but you can always change that to whatever you want. This is a very interesting feature on WordPress. What it does is it allows us to be able to make a blog post directly from an email. So hey, if you're on you're on the bus going to work, or you're out on the lake, hopefully you're on the lake, you can write a blog post directly from your email. And so what you would normally do is you would open up an email, send it to the particular address that you would set up here, and email, obviously the subject would be the title and the body of the email would be the body of your blog post, and it would automatically load up. And so you'd probably want to set something like a default mail category. Now, the instructions here are to set up a new email address specifically for this using POP3 access. So I'm not going to get into this in this video, but if you go back to my previous video on creating an email, you'll be able to get all the information from that video on creating another email address specifically for this, and using the information that it asks for POP3, and you'll see that when it shows you the information on after you've created the email address. So please ensure to check out that if you do want to set this up. If you don't want to set up that, that's fine. Make sure though that if you do set up this email, that the password is very secure. Okay. And just on a side note here, here's the suggestions on the email address name. So that would be the login name. So it would be like this weird thing at yourdomain.com, just to really randomize the email so nobody can guess it and start creating blog posts on your behalf, because that's really what can happen. So when you do create this email address, make sure that the actual email address is very obscure and cannot be guessed, because you don't want people to actually post blogs on your behalf. So there's a little bit of a security risk here, and that's why they're suggesting you to very randomize the actual email address name, okay? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and click Save Changes. I'm not gonna set that up right now. Okay, and we're just gonna scroll down here to the reading section of the settings. Okay. So the front page display, normally when you set up WordPress, it would be your latest post. So it's when we first set it up, it said hello world there with that big plant, and that was automatically setting your blog as your front page. Right now we're using a static page, or what we talked about when we used the mind map. Our static page that we're using is this front page home simple, and you can always go to if you scroll up to your pages, you can find this front page home simple to see the front page. So you can always change the front page of your website to a different one. A lot of themes come with different home pages with different designs. So you can come here and change that front page if your theme doesn't give you an option of changing basically the whole entire look format, because it'll do this for you under theme options. In our case, we've selected one when we installed it, and now you can always just go back and change this later. Okay, your default blog page is blog. You might have made a page, which we're going to be talking about pages later and actually editing them and creating new pages and stuff. You can change that. So you might have called it something different than blog, but there is one already named blog. That's why it's selected there. So you would find that under pages, and there will be a page in there called blog. Okay, and this is just some basic settings. Blog pages to show at most is 10 per page, and how many syndication feeds is 10. So syndication is things like RSS or feeds. Some people actually don't need to go directly to your website to read your blogs. They will use what's called an RSS feed and actually have that come into their phone using special applications so they can read your posts and things like that. Okay, and so for each article to show in a feed show full text, a lot of this anyways is template driven, so we don't need to worry about that too much. Search engine visibility, we're going to be coming back here and unchecking this check mark when we go live with our website. Right now we're telling search engines, hey, don't go and see my website yet, because what happens is, like I said before, is Google will go through, basically what it does is it crawls your website and it looks for things like keywords and pages, and it starts indexing those or saving those in its database. So when people search, those results quickly come up. Now we're discouraging that because we don't want it to index bad information. Right now it has the template information in there, and we don't want it to associate our brand and our website with just demo content that has nothing to do with what we're doing. So that's why we do that. It might not prevent it from happening, but it definitely discourages it from happening. Okay, it does fix itself, and in the end we're still going to go and actually in supplementary material go and set up and make sure that Google knows our website, and we're going to be doing that later on down the road. Okay, so I'm just going to save changes here. Okay, I don't think there was anything really we had to worry about changing there.